When you're working with a Google Sheet, it can be shared with other people, which is great for collaboration. But with Sheets, sometimes there's things that you want to share and parts of that sheet that you don't want other people to break, like formulas or names or certain bits of data that you've already entered. And it's also really useful if I'm sharing a sheet in a shared drive where everybody that has access to that drive might normally have access to edit everything they touch. This is a way to have that sheet shared with all those people and still restrict them from actually making edits to specific things. So let's take a look. I've got a sheet here set up already. It's got some fake names with some numbers and some data in it. And I want to open this up for my staff. I want them to be able to maybe enter some notes in here if I'm sharing it with teachers I work with or an EA or just anybody else. But I don't want them messing up the names of the student numbers. Those aren't data that are going to change, even if some of this other information does. So, way to handle that right out of the gate, I'm going to highlight column A and B just by clicking right on there and dragging across in order to get both of those selected. Now I could right click and come down, and if I look and look and look and look, I'll find an option here for protect range. The other place I can go to is the data menu here. When I come to the data menu, I have an option here for protected sheets and ranges. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up a little side panel for me. Now this first two columns are the names and numbers, so I'm just going to call it that here. Names and numbers. So I know what it is I'm protecting. Now I could protect an entire sheet, which would mean, in this case, sheet 1. Nobody would be able to touch anything on this whole sheet. I'm going to leave it with just the range, which right now is going to be columns A and B. I'll set the permissions, and I'm going to say restrict this to only myself. If I wanted, I could go custom and set it up for certain people who can and certain people who can't, but right now I want just me. Done. It's going to save those changes, and it's going to mean that I can do things in there, but other people cannot. The other option I have when I look at this is protecting these headers across the top. I don't want those to change either. I'm not going to know what these numbers are for. So I'm going to highlight those cells. I'm going to add, and here I'm just going to call it headers. I don't need to include A and B, of course, because they're already protected. I'll go ahead and just leave it like that. And when I set the permissions, one of the other options I have here, instead of completely restricting people, maybe I just want to show a warning when editing this range. So if I do that, it saves that kind of setting. It means that if myself or anybody else comes in here and tries to make a change, as soon as I do, it gives me a little warning and says, whoa, 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 are you sure you want to change this? It shouldn't be changed accidentally. And if I know what I'm doing and I'm ready to go, I can say, okay, it's going to accept that change. If instead I typed on it and hit enter and went, oh, right, I probably shouldn't do that, I can cancel, and it will leave that edit alone. It won't make that change for me. So there's two ways that you can protect very specific sheets, or very specific cells within a sheet, or possibly an entire sheet if you wanted to as well. So that way formulas, names, numbers, data that should not and cannot be changed won't get edited by the people that you are sharing with. So it's a handy way to put those sheets out there, allow people to enter some data, and yet not mess with everything else that you're trying to create.